Hello, so I thought I'd do this video in front of the Christmas tree because it's really nice. I really like the Christmas tree. The chair is also here, so we're just gonna ignore that and just look at the tree that I decorated because I think it's beautiful. Anyway, I have the goal of when I started my PhD to record everything, to record every week, my first day, do all of that stuff and put it together as weekly vlogs and call it PhD Diaries. That was my plan. So I have like 2 months worth of footage of my PhD that I actually haven't put anywhere because I was taken over by the schedule and everything kind of got too much. So I still have all that footage and I thought maybe I should still post them, but honestly I've got like 8 or 9 weeks worth of footage now and I just think it's too much just to shove into vlogs, you know. So I decided to actually put that footage to use. Why is it suddenly gone dark? I decided to put that footage to actual use, and I have kind of created a list of tips. Are they tips? They kind of are tips for a PhD student, but also things that I need to remind myself to do, because these 2 months have been so hard is the wrong word. They've been really challenging for like a variety of reasons, and when I go into these tips and stuff I'll explain why. So I thought I'd do this video as tips. How many times am I going to say tips? For kind of first year PhDs. I know some people start in January. I know a lot of people have just started in October like myself. And I thought these would be a good thing to kind of tell you stuff to do and why they're good tips, but also like show you what I did wrong kind of thing, if that makes sense. So I've got 10 tips. Tip number 1 is make your own schedule. Now, a lot of people recommend that with a PhD you do Monday to Friday 9 to 5. Now that idea of a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday is great. However, you can't just say, okay, I'll work on my PhD from 9 to 5. A PhD is a huge undertaking, you know. It's over 3 to 4 years. You need a schedule. You need to decide what you're going to do and when. You need to go to the library. You're going to work at home. What are you going to do? Because you can't just sit in a room Monday to Friday 9 to 5. You need breaks, you need goals, you need all these things. So make yourself a schedule. Time block. I've recently gotten into it and I think I could do it better. This is where I kind of fell off the bandwagon. I didn't time block in the beginning and then I started doing it halfway through, but then I never stuck to it. And I also spent a lot more of my time blocking than actually doing what I was supposed to be doing. So if you are going to time block, stick to a really strict schedule of how long it's going to take you, because you don't want to end up half your day doing that. There are loads of things, different things that you need to put in your schedule, so I would say that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is go to your training opportunities and use your campuses or uni's facilities. So I have discovered that the training facilities, whilst they may seem boring at points, don't get me wrong, some will be boring, you will want to wish you never came, but it's really good for making friends. It's really good for meeting other people who are doing PhDs, sometimes in completely different schools to you, and it's so interesting, and it's really good to form those bonds. And also you can get introduced to other kinds of concepts, like for example how your school has its own little private workspace which also has a kitchen and a microwave, a fact which I only found out last week. This is why you need to see people, you need to communicate with people, and it's just a really nice time to get involved. And also I went to a training session the other week and I thought, don't know if this is going to be useful, but I'll sign up for it. And it was great. It was all about goals, making short-term, long-term, medium goals, and that was really positive. But you don't know unless you go. And also use your facilities, use your library, work out how your library system works. That's so good. I didn't really bother to do that at the start. I kind of thought, you know what, I've been to a couple of universities, I know how to use this. No, actually go to your library training. Number 3, you will kind of do it anyway, but I want to reinforce how you do this, and that is speak to your supervisor. Obviously, I have monthly meetings with my supervisor, and I kind of just left it as that. I didn't appreciate the fact that I could talk to her at more times in the month, and so I've started scheduling some more meetings just within the month, just to keep more focus on what I'm doing, any other things I could be doing, could be including in my research, because otherwise, especially between my first meeting and then my actual first proper supervision, the ideas were kind of all over the place. We spend that hour sorting everything out that happened over the month when that could have been sorted in a meeting during the month. And then your supervision, you can actually focus on what you've written and discussing further steps for it. Try and form a good relationship with them. I know a few people who really get along with their supervisors. I know a few people who don't, but you just have to try and make the most of it, I think, although it is easier said than done. Step 4 is use the flexibility. You are doing a PhD. You are the most flexible, I believe, that you will ever be in your life. You can control, I'd say, about 90% of everything. At your undergrad and your master's, you were confined by seminars and lectures. Your PhD, it is solely you. If you find that you work better in the morning, get up and do work in the morning. If you find you work better in the afternoon, don't force yourself to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and start work at 9, because by the time you've reached your productivity, you will have burnt out. So I really believe you need to use that flexibility. Know what time of day you work best. Try and do that. If you also want a mental health day, you can take it, and I believe that's so important, and that links onto another point later. But yeah, use this flexibility. Really appreciate that some days you're not going to work, and that's fine, but just be flexible enough to know that you can move your schedule around. Even if you're time blocked, you can easily move that to another day. Say you've got Monday to Sunday in a week, you do your PhD stuff Monday to Friday, and Wednesday you wake up and you're really not feeling your best, you're kind of feeling in a funk, and you just want a day to sit and watch Netflix. That is fine. Move all your time blocking and your to-do list to another day, for example like a Saturday, so you're still working 5 days a week, but you took the time on Wednesday rather than forcing yourself to work and then waking up on the Thursday in an even worse position, if that makes sense. Obviously, if you've got a deadline that you need to submit something in by Thursday, that's harder, but if you do need to change that, again, this is where speaking to your supervisor comes in handy. Number 5, kind of following on from that, is you need to understand that stuff doesn't always go to plan. You will plan a day, you will plan to do certain things, you'll plan to do loads of reading, and you know what? It won't happen. You'll have a day where you think, what was the absolute point in that? And I think accepting that stuff doesn't always go to plan really removes the guilt. I always had this where I'd plan to do loads and loads of stuff in a day, and I don't know why I suddenly thought it was fine. You have an impromptu meeting, you're supposed to go to something that you completely forgot about because you didn't put it in your calendar. That's happened to me. You go to a lecture that you're not even supposed to go to. That happened to me. And like, it's just such a palaver. Sometimes there's a train strike, sometimes, you know, you start to get ill. You go to uni halfway through the day and then you feel ill and you need to go home. Accept that stuff doesn't always go to plan. It's not your fault. Sometimes, maybe, you know, going to the wrong lecture was my fault, but you can easily just move things to another day. It's not the end of the world if stuff doesn't go to plan. The world's not going to implode if you've missed something. The world's not going to implode if you feel like you've failed something. It's fine. Number 6, again, follows on from that. It's almost like I prepped these tips. Number 6, anyway, is prioritize. I cannot enforce or push or emphasize how important this tip is. This is one of my top ones. If I had to prioritize them, I don't know what I'm doing. This is so good, especially if something's gone wrong or a task that you did earlier in the day is taking you longer to do. Prioritize. Pick 3 things. 3 is always a good number. You can do 2 or 4, but I feel like 3 is a good standing. Pick 3 things that you absolutely want to get done and prioritize them and do them in that order. It really helps. And even if you've got a list of like 10 goals that you need to get done, just doing those few things is going to make yourself feel a whole lot better, because you have done the most important things. And so what if you haven't checked your references in your bibliography or finished that other random reading that you really didn't need to do that day? You've done the 3 most important things, and those other tasks, it doesn't matter, you just put it on your to-do list for another day. That's why prioritizing is good. Also, if you're going to a conference or you're going somewhere where you've got, I don't know, an hour and a half train ride and you want to make the most of that work but you don't know what to do, prioritize. Do the most important one on that train ride, and it doesn't matter. Even if you don't finish it, you've started it, you've put yourself somewhere of doing the most priority thing, the most important thing to do. So that's why prioritization is important. Number 7 is you're not on your own. I know it can be tempting to think, tempting makes it sound like it's such a good thing. Everybody's doing a different PhD and that's fine, but everybody is in the same boat. For example, I made a group of friends. We were on the Leeds, I think, Gals Who Graduate page, and we formed a group, and that is actually so comforting, because when I was having problems doing certain things, when they're having problems doing certain things, we can kind of come together, and it shows that all your kind of concerns are normal. And I think this is really important, especially when you begin your PhD, because you don't really know what you're doing, you don't really know what's entirely expected of you yet. And I think by making friends and really understanding that you are not on your own is such a positive thing. We have study dates where we're all, well, not all of us, sometimes some of us, sometimes all of us, where we study in either library or we go to kind of a study space, or even sometimes we just meet for lunch. PhD especially can be quite isolating, because all you do is, at the moment, all I'm doing is reading and writing. So I don't see that many people, so arranging to have lunch with people when I study, that is so important to me at the moment. And it's really nice just to chat to people. So do that. You are not on your own. Number 8 is a very key one and kind of goes along with a warning to the previous one, but number 8 is don't compare yourself. So you've made these PhD friends, you're going to everything, you're meeting loads of people, you're kind of immersing yourself in this whole environment. Don't feel like you're doing it wrong, or you're not doing as much as other people, or you're not doing work a certain way. The only person that can really tell you you're not doing enough or you should be doing more is your supervisor. And this early on, I think it's unlikely that they'll tell you that. They'll probably tell you you're doing too much, honestly. But you need to not compare yourself, because you're all doing different projects. You all work in very different ways. Just because they get up at 5 AM and, I don't know, go to the gym and like have their life together, doesn't mean that you need to get up at 5 AM and go to the gym. Maybe having your life together would be a desired goal, like for me, but I know that I don't need to get up at 5 AM. I learned that very early on. I wanted to get up at 5. I wanted to do all this stuff, you know, I wanted to. And number 9, going along from that as well, is imposter syndrome happens to everyone. This is one that I didn't actually work out until last week, really. I have imposter syndrome really badly. I've had it since I was at school, and it's just always been a thing. I always felt like when I got into my sixth form to do my A-levels, somebody was going to turn around and tell me it was a mistake. When I got into uni, somebody was going to turn around and tell me it was a mistake, or they marked my exam wrong. And it happens over and over again. And then I was at a writing retreat last week. Get involved. I was at a writing retreat, and one of the women who is there for my funding board, she said to me, or rather she said to a collective group of us, that you've got to remember, like, you are an elite few. Thank you. The proportion of the population who's doing PhDs is very small. Very small. It's not a common thing. You don't just wake up one day and decide to do a PhD. The application process itself takes a lot of work, and you have to have an interview for your funding, and all these kind of different things that emphasize that you are the right person for it. So the fact that I have imposter syndrome is not stupid, but it's a little bit silly, because I clearly am supposed to be here. I was clearly selected. They had the interview with me. They know my face. They've not made a mistake. It's fine. And I was also talking to a third year and asking her how she deals with imposter syndrome, and she was quite frank with me, and she said that she still has it even though it's the third year. So this isn't a tip to be like, get rid of the imposter syndrome, because I know that's so hard. Through many years of me achieving my academic goals and my academic ambitions, I still feel like I am an imposter. So this is not a tip to say get rid of imposter syndrome. This is a tip to say it happens to everyone. You're not alone. So kind of accept that it's fine. It's there in the back of your mind, but it's not true, and just roll with it. And number 10, the final tip, is something that I'm really trying to do, and I'm really still struggling with, but I'd say out of everything, it's the most important one. Number 10 is look after yourself. The PhD is mentally draining. You will feel so tired. You'll be really hard on yourself. You know, you'll be your biggest critic with the PhD, but you just need to look after yourself. You need to make sure that if you're spending a day doing work, that you get outside, you have fresh air. Yes, even if it's cold, even if it's raining, put an umbrella up, wear a scarf, you know, get fresh air. Eat good food. Obviously have a takeaway. I'll have a takeaway every now and again, and if that's your definition of looking after yourself because you don't have to cook, that's also fine. I would say for me, I need to get out and have fresh air more. I need to eat nutritious food because I'm not looking after my body, and when I don't look after my body, I feel more sluggish, and then it's harder for me to push myself to do my PhD work. But you need to look after yourself. If reading is a hobby that you really enjoy, try and devote half an hour in an evening, or even 15 minutes before you go to bed, to read. If you absolutely love films, set yourself the target of doing a certain amount of work in a day and take yourself to the cinema or watch a film at home. Do fun things like that. I've started taking the time to really do fun days. For example, last week, put up the Christmas tree. You know, that's a really fun activity. Baking, if you love baking. I feel like all of these revolve around food. But look after yourself. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes your body happy. Find balance. Don't overexert yourself. You're only 2 months in. I'm actually saying this to myself. I'm only 2 months in. I need to calm down. That's it. Just look after yourself. It's something I'm actively still trying to do. I'm definitely not great at it. It was something that I wanted to master before I started the PhD, but actually I didn't, and now I'm in this situation where I'm trying to look after myself, but I'm not looking after myself properly in the ways that I know I would actually benefit from, if that makes sense. But anyway, they're my 10 tips and 10 things I've learned from the first 2 months doing my PhD. So I hope they are useful for you. If you're like third year, then I don't know how useful this is going to be, but from a 2 months in perspective, I feel like this is quite useful for first years. So I hope they help somebody. I hope they help me. Honestly, I hope they help me. But yeah, that's it. And I will be filming some actual PhD diaries, vlogs, and putting them up soon. Thank you.